Good morning. I'm Mark Allen with Gaper.io, and I'm here today with Shannon Falconer, the CEO of Because Animals. I think it's good evening in your case, isn't it, Shannon?
It is, yes. I'm here in Vienna, and so yeah, at this point, yeah, my evening, your morning.
Yes. Yeah, bright and early here. So to start with, can you share a brief background of yourself and your work history?
Yeah, happy to. So I'm trained as a biochemist. So I'm from Canada. My master's, my PhD, both from Canada. And then about 7 or 8 years ago, I moved to the Bay Area, and I was working as a postdoc at Stanford in the biomedical industry or community, which is as a biochemist. But I had spent a couple of probably 2 decades of my life volunteering with various aspects of animal rescue, mostly cat and dog. So during my academic pursuits, I would sort of be in the lab during the day and then in the evenings doing volunteer related stuff in the weekends. And I hadn't really ever thought that, my volunteering and working with animals was just what I needed to do. And then science, I just loved. But I didn't ever see an opportunity for these worlds to sort of come together. And then, while I was in the Bay, which I really think of as this totally unique place in the world where anything and everything is possible. And I met Pat Brown, the CEO of Impossible Foods, who is friends with actually one of my supervisors at Stanford. And it was it was in that period that I thought, gosh, I want to be dedicating my scientific career to taking animals out of the supply chain. And at first I thought I would pursue the avenue of human food production because of course humans are the main consumers of animal-based products. But as I started to sort of think about it more and dig more deeply into the industry, I realized that really actually pet food is what I needed to do. Pet food because, as somebody who hasn't eaten meat for many, many, many years now, I have lots of options for myself. But I have virtually none when it comes to feeding my cats. And so there's this huge white space in the pet food industry when it comes to options for people who want to feed their pets a truly environmentally sustainable and nutritious diet that is still meat-based. So at that point, I didn't know what I was getting myself into. I just sort of up and quit my postdoc and said, that's it. I'm going to start this company making cultured meat cat food, and found my co-founder, and away we went. And that was, I guess 6 years ago now. So,
Wow. So Because Animals has been a company for 6 years now?
Almost. Almost legally, almost 6 years. It seems crazy. So many more gray hairs since then.
I think I know about too. So we'll explain what Because Animals, your product is. Actually, it sounds like it's plant-based food for animals, but it's probably a little bit more than that. So explain what your product is and products are, and who your target market is.
Yeah, no, great. Thanks for asking, because actually this is a point that a lot of people get tripped up on, naturally so. So what cultured meat is, which is what we're actually making, is it actually is meat grown just without the animal. So it's not plant-based, it is actually meat. And so what we do is we take some cells from an animal, it's a one-time scenario. We don't ever go back to the animal after that. We take some of their cells, and then basically we grow those cells in a medium or a liquid that's filled with nutrients like vitamins, minerals, amino acids. So the same environment that your cells grow in your body, we grow those cells in what we refer to as a bioreactor. And in the end, we harvest a product that is, nutritionally speaking, identical to meat. It's just that we produce it in, of course, an infinitely different way. So this meat that we're making, we then combine it with other plant-based ingredients to make. Ultimately, it will be a wet food or a kibble that pets and pet parents are already familiar with. Right now, we have a couple of products in the market that are not cultured meat, but they're made with other cultured ingredients. So probiotics, we have a probiotic-based supplement, one for dogs, one for cats, as well as a nutritional yeast-based dog cookie. And so probiotics, which are healthy bacteria, and nutritional yeast, yeast that has lots of vitamins and minerals in there. They are grown actually in a way that's really similar to what we're doing when we grow our meat. They're also grown in a bioreactor. So the process is actually very, very similar. So we're creating this really new ingredient, which is cultured meat. But the way that we're getting there is through an avenue that people are already familiar with. They just don't know it.
Interesting, because and correct me if I'm wrong, but there is a company in the Bay Area that's trying to do this for humans. Isn't that true?
There are several companies. Yep, there are several companies in the Bay Area who are doing this for humans, for fish, making certain types of fish, for making various types of animal fat that they would then blend with plant-based ingredients, for example, to make plant-based burgers, though with animal-based fat that doesn't come from the animal. Yep, both.
Oh.
Yes, that's right.
Sounds like a very interesting world we're about to embark on, where we're going to
Yeah.
be these huge animal farms, basically, for lack of a better term, right?
Yeah, well, if you think about, I guess as people are becoming increasingly aware of not only the animal abuses, but also just the extraordinary environmental toll that animal agriculture has on our world, and of course, as our population, our human population continues to grow and grow, and we take up more land. There's less and less land available to grow the crops, to then feed the cows, to then feed humans. So at some point, we're absolutely going to hit a limit, and we're getting pretty close. And so it's simply not sustainable. And so what we're doing right now is we're basically creating, all of a scenario where all of those heads of cattle are replaced by these bioreactors, which look very similar to, like, if you've ever gone on a tour of a brewery and you see these huge vats, that's basically what they look like. And so now you have these vats that are growing. It is animal tissue, it is meat, but it doesn't come at the expense of all of those environmental effects. Something else that people don't really think about is just people know about the problems associated with antibiotic resistance, right? And so if you get sick, you should or shouldn't you take an antibiotic, because antibiotic resistance is a really big growing global concern. But something that people don't realize is that over 80% of the antibiotics that are produced in the US are sold to the animal agriculture industry. And so what this means, and these antibiotics are then used sort of prophylactically to feed animals, to actually make them sort of beef up, to make them sort of fatter, and to yield more meat. The problem, though, is that this contributes massively to the development of antibiotic resistance that then affects humans. So when we grow our meat in a bioreactor, we grow it without the inclusion of any antibiotics or those typical growth promoting steroids that we've seen pose problems for human health. So we are creating a product that is superior in many levels, in that it's environmentally sustainable. It doesn't have those problems that are associated with public health. And then, of course, it's much more humane for the animals themselves.
Oh, interesting. And I was surprised a couple of years ago, I found out that the majority of grain and produce built, farmed in the United States is for animals. It's not for us.
Yep, exactly. So I mean, cows are herbivores. So they are big animals. They need to eat a lot. So if you think about all of the, as you said, I mean, all of the grain and all of the land and all of the water that's required to then actually grow that food to feed the cows, it's a very, very, very inefficient process.
It is. Yes, it is. Actually, I have a friend who works in a company trying to help that, trying to make it cheaper. Not
okay.
Right. So, but very interesting. And so let's talk about your company now. You're in Vienna. And you have labs in other parts of the world. Is that true?
Yeah, I'm a Canadian. I'm originally from Canada. And so not so long after leaving Stanford and starting the company, I moved back to Canada, and we have a lab there where we have some excellent scientists, and yeah, pushing this technology forward. We are, I more recently moved to Europe, and we are looking to expand and to build out a lab in this area of the world as well, and to basically create our pilot plant where we will be able to actually start producing meat at a higher scale as we move towards commercialization.
Well, I mean, the fact that you have a plant means those workers actually have to go into the plant every day. But what about the rest of your company, the executives and all that? Are they all remote?
Yeah, so our company has historically been, I think actually my co-founder and I, it's funny because for the first 8, and this was not during COVID, I think for the first 2 years of our company, my co-founder and I physically met one another twice. So we worked remotely the entire time. He was still in Canada and I was still in the US. So yeah, the scientists, they physically go into work, but the rest of the team, our marketing director, myself, my co-founder, we all work remotely. So yeah, we have lots of Zoom and Hangouts calls. Yes, it's been entirely home-based work for the most part for us.
And going forward, do you see that you're going to stay that way, that you'll continue to be a remote company except for production?
I think we are looking to centralize more than we have thus far. We did get hung up. We were in the process of centralizing when COVID hit. And then once that situation is cleared up, I think we will localize to to say 2 geographical regions at most. But I think most of the work that, for example, when I don't need to go to the lab to have calls with investors. I can do that from home. So I think a lot of our work will continue to be remote, with the exception of that of the scientific team, and those folks are actually on the bench.
Very interesting. And what effect did COVID have on your company, since you were already remote? But it had to have an effect, I assume, on the plant, correct?
Our lab, we were actually very, very lucky in that where our lab is situated in Canada, it's quite a remote part of Canada, and it's actually on an island. So it's a province, Prince Edward Island is where the lab is at the moment. So the island just shut down its borders, and the island has remained quite COVID-free for the duration of the pandemic. So it's our lab space remained open, and our team was able to continue to go in and to keep working. So we were very, very lucky. We were virtually unaffected.
Very interesting. And you said you're going for funding. You're talking to investors, so I assume you're going for funding. Is that correct?
Yeah, we are a venture-backed company. So we have investors, all over the world at this point. One from the Valley, from your neck of the woods. We're just about to close a round of financing right now, where our lead investor is a European strategic investor. So yeah, and I'm having all these conversations remotely.
Very cool. So, well, Shannon, I want to thank you for your time today. It's been fascinating talking to you. I know you're passionate about what you do, and as you know, I have family members that are passionate about what you do and follow you closely. So
yes,
I'm glad you could join us today, and best of luck. And hopefully, everybody's eating this way. What, in 10 years, you think?
I think so. I mean, maybe not 10 years, but certainly 30 years, I think it would be more people than not. I would say, yes. We have no choice.
Yes,
so.
and more pets than that too, right?
Yes, that's right.
Well, thank you again, and have a great night.
Thank you very much, Mark. I really appreciate it.